Cherry Creek Radio has been furnished a fee for the following program.
The following program does not reflect the views and opinions of Cherry Creek Media.
You know I'm a dreamer. My dreams came true. Keller Williams, I owe it all to you. I'm on my way. I bought a home, home sweet home. Just one more night, and I'm coming off this long and winding road. I'm on my way. I have a new home, home sweet home. Thanks, Keller Williams, I love my dream home.
You're tuned to Home Sweet Home. And now, here's Russ McClellan.
Good Saturday morning to you. This is Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan. That's me. And today, I have a great guest. I have Ann Tedeschi. Thanks for joining me. All masked up in the COVID land. I like it. Wonder if this COVID thing's ever going to end. And
it's going to be a long haul.
Yeah. You know what we're going to talk about today, guys? Is this infamous magical cauldron of data and analysis of appraising. Ann, have you ever been described as like a wizard of value?
No.
Because Ann is one of those people in our industry as realtors that we rely on. There's a lot of appraisers, not as many as maybe we need right now. But Ann's been in the business a long time. She owns a company called A.T. Appraisal Services. Just going to get the number out there right away, and we'll do it again later on in this show. But her number's 886-8805. And again, thanks for joining us. I thought maybe we just kind of start by, like, how did you get into the appraising business? And then let's kind of talk about what an appraiser does.
Okay, well, actually, I just kind of stumbled into the business. My education is actually in forest technology and wildlands recreation management. I actually am from upstate New York. I got a technical degree in forest technology and came out to work for the Forest Service. And I designed motorcycle trails and 4x4 trails for the for the Forest Service. So then I quickly learned that to be anything other than a tech, I had to go get my 4-year degree. So I went back to school out at Eastern and WSU. Once I graduated from there, I got on with Washington State Parks as a park ranger. I worked in 2 parks, Crawford State Park in the northeast corner of the state and Alta Lake State Park, which is here in our local area.
Yeah, that's a gem, by the way.
It is. I loved Alta Lake. It is. I loved Alta Lake. But the problem was it's seasonal. Right. So at the end of the summer, I needed a job, and I had some friends up in Omak. So I moved up there, and one of my friends worked for the assessor's office. And so I got an interview with the assessor's office, actually, for a clerk position. But during the interview, they said they were also looking for an appraiser. I wasn't sure what an appraiser did or what an appraisal was, but I knew I would be happier working out in the field than sitting in the office all day. Right. And so they actually hired me as an appraiser trainee because I had the technical field knowledge that they needed for that position. And so I quickly learned that an appraisal, in a nutshell, is an opinion of value.
Right. So what year do you think that was? When did you start doing appraisals?
1990.
1990, yeah. So I started in 1989 as a real estate broker, 19-year-old kid. And it was different back then.
Very different.
We talk a lot about the good old days, right? And I don't know if the good old days were that much better or not, but they sure seem simpler in hindsight.
A lot simpler, especially with regards to appraisal. When I started, I moved down to Wenatchee in 1994 and started working for Dennis Johnson at Pacific Appraisal Associates.
Right.
Back then, an appraisal report was about 10 pages. It was very simple. We had 3 comparable sales in the report, a picture of the front, rear, and street view for the property, a picture of the front of the comp, and we were done.
Kind of drive by.
Yep. There you go. It was pretty simple.
And then you could call the realtors back then too and say, "Hey, what do we need to get? What value is that?"
Yeah.
And then
they frowned upon that.
Yeah.
We as appraisers, we didn't do that, but we did have a lot of people calling us trying to.
Realtors had no shame.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I need. My buyer wants to buy this.
Yeah.
So it's funny too. In real estate, when I started, it was one page in a purchase and sale agreement for everything.
Yeah.
Well, everybody represented the seller, even though we didn't. But in writing, we did. And financing, all contingencies, everything was in one page. You filled it out by hand. But that's going way back when there was the MLS book, that was delivered.
We used to physically tape our photos onto the report.
Right.
You had to go get them processed and then tape the pictures into the report.
So you probably I remember spending a lot of money at 1 hour photo.
Yep.
And before that, it was like the Kodak instant.
Yeah, I got my first digital camera in 1995. It was like $900, and you could take 48 pictures before you had to download.
Reminiscing. I had the Sony, the 3.5-inch floppy disk that went into the back. It took 10 pictures.
Ooh.
It was expensive too. It was like $1,000.
Yeah.
And everybody was fighting for it in my office when I owned Lakeshore Properties years ago. It was kind of fun. But what's exciting about how things evolve? There's usually reasons why. And unfortunately, sometimes it's a windshield wiper where we'll have one problem and then the government will tell us what to do. And sometimes we go the other direction a little too far. And it seems like in my 32-year career, whatever it's been, it seems like that's kind of constant. And what we end up doing is layering and layering and layering and layering. And pretty soon we have an affordable housing problem. Pretty soon we have a shortage of appraisers. And let's talk a little bit about that challenge for you as an appraiser. So as things evolved, all the way up to about 2008, it was, kind of the same, right? I mean, we didn't really
it was after
change.
The collapse of the residential market that things changed drastically for appraisers.
Right. And
everything we do changed.
Yeah, so that Dodd-Frank legislation, that was a big part of the mortgage industry collapse. The recession, the Great Recession, as we talk about it, that happened, started in about 2008, September of 2008, roughly, and lasted 2 or 3 years, depending on where you were.
In our little valley, we're about a year behind the East Coast. It seems like Seattle's about 6 months behind what happens on the East Coast, and Wenatchee's about 6 months behind Seattle.
Right.
So we didn't really even see the market until about 2009 change here in the valley.
Right.
And so, but part of the regulations you're talking about is they've standardized our forms. They standardize how we enter the data into the forms, and they've legislated how we derive our data. And now, instead of just saying, "Oh, I think it's a $50 adjustment here," or we didn't really support our adjustments back then, but now we have to support statistically everything we do in the report.
Yeah, so let me paint a picture. I mean, it's kind of how it goes down for people that are curious if they haven't bought a house or refinanced. If you're going to buy a house, you're out there hopefully working with a realtor. I love you guys that don't work with realtors, but I'll tell you, man, maybe back in 1989 it was okay, but right now, whew. And make sure you interview people because, like any industry, they're not all the same. So you really need to interview and get some representation because there's a lot of rules that can really trip you up in a hurry, and it's a litigious game. I mean, let's face it, the world is litigious. It's unfortunate, but representation is a big deal.
And that's very true. Even when I purchased my home, I hired a realtor. I also hired a home inspector. Even the home I bought was only 10 years old.
Yeah.
You just never know.
You never know, yeah, to that degree. I mean, we'll talk about how home inspections actually help you a lot. I'm a big fan of pre-list home inspections. I like to know what's going on. I like to be transparent. I know there's various schools of thought on that.
Appraisers love you to do that up in advance.
Right. Well, it prevents double-dip negotiating a lot of times because unfortunately, there's realtors out there and just people that'll say, hey, I'll pay you whatever, but I want an inspection. They'll wait till the last day of the inspection. They have no intention of giving you what they said they would. There was no intention of good faith. It was just a misleading emotional trap to get you to think that you're going to sell your house. And then the last day of the inspection, they go, okay, by the way, we're going to disapprove this inspection because it's at our sole discretion. And then we'll offer you $25,000 less. I see the U-Haul's packed up in the front yard. So you got to be very careful when you're looking at purchase and sale agreements. If that feasibility or that inspection date is too close to the closing date, that's going to create pressure that a not so scrupulous person might take advantage of. So one of the ways that I, as a real estate broker, try to just eliminate that issue is say, hey, look, we have an inspection. We've addressed these issues that needed to be addressed before we even listed it. We fixed this, we fixed that. And now here's a copy of it if you'd like one. Now, just like a note, you need to get your own inspector to endorse it, or you need to get that inspector to endorse you to make sure the licenses and the warranties are involved, because they're specific to the person that ordered that inspection report typically. But it is a great way to get stuff out in the open and help the whole process, right? Like you said.
Well, and it's very helpful to the appraiser to have that up front, because now I know going in there's no structural issues that I have to deal with in this appraisal report.
Right. So to get fundamental, a buyer's going to pay for an appraisal. They're going to make an application at a bank or a mortgage company or online at a mortgage company, wherever you're going to do it. Then there's going to be a scenario where the lender says, okay, well, you qualify as an individual, but we also need the house to qualify. So we need to get a third-party independent person, i.e. an appraiser, to go out there and tell us not only what it's worth, but to watch for things that maybe would be defects that would make the home essentially not financeable until those defects were fixed. So you have a lot of pressure on you, because Here we are. Here's the reality. I'm an aggressive real estate broker, right? You hire me, my job is, I'm aggressive. I market. I've been in the business 30 years for a reason. I know how to go get some people some money, right? So the idea is that I'm going to press that price as high as I can press it for you if I'm representing the seller. Right? That's my job, to get you the most amount of money in the least amount of time. When we come back, Ann, I want to talk about what challenges that creates for you as a historian, because you got to prove what old Russ is out there doing and all us aggressive.
I have to be able to support that in the appraisal.
Right?
Correct.
They just don't take my word for it, right? Like, gosh, dang it. All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk about how does that work actually if I sell your home for more money than maybe the market demonstrated historically, and what challenges an appraiser is going to face when and if that situation comes up. And in our appreciating market, especially in this post-COVID land, there is an invasion of money coming from the west side of the mountains, and it is becoming challenging, especially challenging in a shallow inventory, a pond with not enough houses. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be right back.
Home sweet home. Thanks, Keller Williams. I love my dream home.